What I've learned about grief, I think, is that it's a long party, or it can be, or it certainly was for me. And I remember people trying to tell me about the 5 stages of grief, and I didn't want to listen because I felt it in some way they were trying to reduce me and my great grief for my brother into a system or a process. I couldn't see how it would help me, and I think the fact that the notion that there were 5 stages made me think that it was supposed to be a linear process. So the idea being that you start there feeling not good, and then day by day, inch by inch, you feel a bit better until you feel okay again. And certainly in my experience, that grief is not a linear process. It, in fact, is the opposite. It goes like that. It zigzags around. And there are within it little periods where you think, oh, I might be feeling a little bit better. And then suddenly, whoosh, there's another gust. And you're off again and you think, I didn't expect to be back here. What's happened? And recently I looked up the 5 stages of grief, sort of expecting to see the ways in which they were flawed. And I realised that possibly because I'm no longer in the angry stage, I can now appreciate that they're not supposed to be a linear, one-size-fits-all solution, but that actually it's got a useful way to look at some of the ways that grief and loss can work upon us. One of the things I think I've definitely learnt about grief is that it's both intensely specific but also universal. And I think in some ways grief is like the dark twin of falling in love. And if you remember what falling in love feels like, you really do think you're the first person to ever have experienced it. But then gradually you realise that actually it's one of the main things about being a human is to experience love. And then of course if you experience love, at some point you will experience grief. And everybody's grief story, possibly like everybody's love story, has things that make it very specific and personal, but also has things that are universal. That, so that it always helps me to think about ways in what I have in common with my fellow human beings. And so I think that's what I've learnt about grief, that it is possible to learn from other people's experience. It doesn't take away from the personal nature of your own to think about what other people have done. If I could go back in time and talk to my younger self, what I think is that a lot of the people around me told me that, time would be a great healer, and actually, in general, I don't really think that's true. I sort of sat around and waited for time to heal me, and it didn't happen, and I became angry about that. And I've realised since that the time itself doesn't do the work. It won't do it on its own. It's what you do with the time that matters. And what I would say to my younger self, nobody ever said this to me, and it's tough love really, but this would be what I would say. I would say, your old life is gone and you can't have it back. But what you will be able to do in the future, and time will be an ally in this, is you will be able to patch up your raggedy heart, and you will be able to start thinking and feeling your way to how you want to be in your new life, because there is a life waiting for you, and it's not the one you're expecting to lead, and the undamaged version of you is gone with the wind, but there is a life and it's waiting for you to step into it, and there is joy and beauty and love in your future that you can't even believe, and you'll have more love, and then probably, you'll have more grief, because such is the cycle of life. I think we love people and we lose them and then we grieve them, and the more I think about grief as being an essential part of the human condition, I think the more I'm able to make friends with it, and then therefore make friends also with love and with life.